All right, so the lesson for the day is called the four-part cycle of the modern sage. I like the word sage because I feel like it's somebody who's able to hear the what is, right? Or I talk about often meditation being the ability to listen without thinking. It's also what yoga is, according to the sages. The ability to listen without thinking to you, not me, but that could be a practice that would help you listen to you, like actually listen to somebody when they speak to you. And I think that the most challenging thing to teach as a yoga teacher who's teaching yoga, and maybe exercise too, but the hardest thing to teach has nothing to do with how flexible you are. You think like, what's the hardest thing to teach? Headstand. No, it's easy. The hardest thing to teach is the hardest thing to practice. And that's listening. That's it. How many students pass through these walls who could learn headstand? Everyone. How many students pass through these walls who could learn to listen? Everyone. How many people find it challenging to listen during these times? Everyone. Like, just look around and what's going on in the world today. So that's the hardest thing to teach, and it's the hardest thing to practice, listening. And the ability to listen is what makes you a sage or a yogi. And you can call that voice whatever you want. Some people call it God, some people call it the self. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, that's all for the intellect anyways, right? You could call it, I was listening to this interview with Fat Mike from NoFX, and he's not a spiritual person, so to say. He calls himself an accidental Buddhist. Like he says, I keep missing danger in my life. It's almost like he says, I believe there are little tiny lemmings under the ground with a big magnet that are moving me out of the way of danger. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. That's a pretty funny one, isn't it? But what it is like the yogis of the past called it self-realization. Just being able to hear who you are amidst the noise of society, expectations. You understand what I'm getting at, right? That's what a sage is. A sage is able to listen to who they are. So now we know the four-part cycle of living as a sage, the ability to listen. It's like a four-part cycle of learning to listen. True happiness comes when you're able to analyze through the lens of, am I really into this? Like, is this in alignment with me? That's it. I was reading this quote this morning from Ramone, and he was saying, when I didn't have anything, I was really happy. And then the band got really famous, and I still felt happiest when I was alone and wasn't distracted by anything. This good, profound spiritual insight. There's no attachment to trying to get anywhere. Just be you. But man, it's easy to take the bait of the temptation to get outside. And a lot of the spiritual traditions talked about this. There's a story about Jesus and the devil. And the devil comes to Jesus in his 40-day meditation in the desert and says, I'll give you this whole kingdom if you just listen to me instead of you. And he declines the offer. That's why we still talk about that today. We're really drawn to people who decline the offer to get outside, right? Just be yourself. Same thing with the Buddha. The story is in Buddhist philosophy as well. Mara comes to tempt the Buddha and says, I'll give you anything you want. All you have to do is give up the connection to self, your meditation. It's tempting. It happens to all kinds of yogis. It could happen to anyone. It happened to Bikram. He's not bad. Bikram is not a bad person. He took the bait. Anybody could take the bait. You dangle some money or whatever it is that you sort of where your weakness is. Ice cream past 9 p.m. It's hard to get up in the morning if you eat late, right? Or meditate. That's a pretty light dangling of temptation. But really, to be comfortable as you, that's enlightenment, or to live as a sage. Some people are born like that, teaching safety. Not me. I have to fumble around in the dark for 20 years, and now I'm like, I think I'm about 15% good. I got another 85 to go. But so far, in my experience, the process is a four-part cycle. And it awakens at 1, and then 1 leads into 2, and then 2 leads into 3, and then 3 leads into 4, and then it continues to go like that through your whole life. You understand what I mean? Like in the beginning, there's just 1. You don't have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. They all wake up sequentially, and then it keeps rotating like that. Take it or leave it, but this is my experience. It becomes more refined with time, meaning there's less drama as you pass through or resistance. You know, the wheels, you grease the wheel, put some WD-40 on the wheel so it turns easier. That's the techniques, right? The practices that you do that connect you to you. Whatever they are, standing on your head, listening to music, making good food, serving others, doesn't matter. That's not the point. Whatever greases your wheels, as they say. Keep it turning. So the first part of the cycle is personal discovery. So every spiritual journey begins with the same question. Who am I? Right? And people from all walks of life experience this. Not just people who are down and out or have been drinking and they hit rock bottom. All kinds of people. People who have a lot of money and appear to have everything. They go through the same thing. What is the point of all of this? Everybody goes through at some point. Maybe not in this lifetime. Maybe this lifetime they're just here to drink and be merry. That's from the Bible. Did you know that? Drink and be merry. That was King Solomon. They said he was the wisest man. But the wisdom came after he realized drink and be merry gets old after a while. That's where the wisdom came from. You get all the food, you've tasted all the things, you've had the best ice cream on planet Earth, you've had the best beer, the best vodka, the best party, the best drugs, the best... Do you ever get satisfied? No. You always want the next thing. Now you see how they make shatter marijuana, and you have to get this crazy device, and it just keeps turning into the next thing. You can get your weed as iced tea and drink the iced tea, so you don't have to smoke. It's like chasing the next thing. It's called the yuppie paradigm. The next best thing. But you, like Mick Jagger said, you'll never get it. You always want more. So that's the beginning of the question. Okay, if I can't get it from outside of me, who am I? What's my purpose? There has to be more to life than this. And you go to a dinner party and people always ask you, what do you do for a living? That's not what we're talking about here. Who are you? Like, I'm a dentist? That's not who you are. Right? I mean, underneath that, you may have practices that feed your purpose. Maybe being a dentist feeds your purpose. I don't know. There are practices that I do that feed my purpose. I listen to music that inspires me to teach and to keep up in my sobriety, and those are practices that I do that are part of staying connected to me. If I don't do those practices, then I fall back onto the King Solomon before the wake up. Well, it wasn't that bad when I was drinking. Your mind is tricky, man. It leaves out all the bad stuff and says, yeah, come on, Some people, even 30 years of recovery, still the voice is in their head going, just a drink won't hurt. But do the practices that feed your purpose. And really, the only person who can decide what that is you, not me. I haven't been there with you since you came out of the womb and observed you the whole way. I have no idea what you went through. You have no idea what I went through. Right? You may get some good tips along the way from other sages like you. Oh yeah, I should try that. And then you put it on, wear it around for a while, feels good, keep wearing it. But if it doesn't fit, leave it. There's no rules. Right? In the process of being you, you make the rules. It's like playing a board game with my 5-year-old. Like she throws in some new rule that didn't exist the last time we played the game so she can win. What are you going to do? Mastery comes from what? What does mastery come from? Repetition. You heard of this, 10,000 hours to master something, like the Malcolm Gladwell book. Mastery comes through repetition. So when you have some awareness of who you are, and you're practicing constantly aligning with your purpose, will you get better at it over time? Yeah, you will. That's a yoga practice. Yoga means union with God. So what's a yoga practice? That's why you read, if you were from another planet or you were brand new to yoga and you didn't know anything about yoga and you just came down and started asking questions, you'd have no idea what yoga is. Somebody over here with their leg behind their head and doing some crazy breathing. Somebody over here singing 24 hours a day. Somebody over here feeding people. Somebody over here dancing around. You wouldn't know. You'd be like, what the hell is yoga? I have no idea. This doesn't make sense. I can't put a finger on it. The reason why is there are 7.6 billion ways to practice yoga. Yoga means be you. And if you accumulated some bullshit along the way that told you that you were somebody else, the yoga practice is undoing the bullshit. It's unlearning. Oh yeah, that wasn't me. Leave it. Forgive yourself. Move on. You'll get better at it. What if your purpose is unclear? That's the question that I get a lot, huh? What's my dharma? I can't answer that one. If your purpose is unclear, you start to take a broad focus through meditation. Ask questions, ask teachers, watch, learn to listen. That's the big one. Even if you don't agree with something, learn to listen. That's hard. Somebody's saying something you don't agree with. But that's what a sage is able to do without becoming emotional. It's not that you don't care. You're not numbing out to it. You're like a grown-up dealing with a toddler. If a toddler has a temper tantrum and you don't agree with the temper tantrum and you're a grown-up and you have a temper tantrum back, what happens? There's no resolve. It's just a mess. Like if my daughter's freaking out, which she does from time to time, and I just freak out back at her, what kind of parenting is that? It's not a very good teacher, is it? No, you sort of observe it with this sweet little smile, like you know a secret. Like this won't last forever. I've been through this before. And that happens with other people while they're dealing with their bigotry or their self-worth issues or their pain or their grief or whatever's causing them to behave badly. Now close your eyes for a second. Reflect on what is your purpose. What is your calling to mastery? Can you see it? If you can't see it, no problem. Keep asking questions. That's the practice. But eventually, you're going to need to see it. Because if you can never see it, which doesn't happen anyway, so don't freak out. But if you can't see it, you can't do anything about it. And you can open your eyes. That's just for your own reflection instead of just me talking at you. The second stage is called dharmic alignment. This sounds fancy, doesn't it? It's like your self-daily focus. It's the actual practices. It's the specific focus on your intention. And it's important to note, like, you know, on cigarettes, it's been a long time since I smoked, but they put the warning. Like, if you smoke, you'll probably die from cancer or whatever the warning. Here's the warning. You always have a choice, no matter how bad it gets, at any given moment, to choose something else. Trust me, I know from experience. You don't have to do the same thing. People will tell you that. Nope, you have to only pick one and that's the only way. It's not right. They're lying. Just wait and see. Maybe it is one. Maybe it's 25. My teacher said, I need every practice. Give them all to me. Don't give me one. I'm too dynamic for that. You know. Just pay attention. There's no rules. The intellect loves to, like, you know, let's get fundamentalist about this. Let's throw some absolutism in there. You know what the problem with religions that have all the answers is? They don't allow questions. And the sages that I look up to, they questioned everything. You know, Alan Watts, the Buddha, even Jesus. If you study the life of Jesus, you'll see, who did he challenge the most? The religious right. And you're not different than him. He's a sage like you. So there's two practices in this area. One is alignment. You see it and you move with it. You see it and you move with it. Or the opposite, the polarity of alignment is resistance. I don't want to go there. And then eventually the resistance will correct you. Either you're supposed to go there and you're fighting it for no good reason, or it's helping you go away from something that's not useful. I know that's a big one from recovery. You know, eventually you're like, holy shit, I should probably stop drinking. That's resistance. You experience, if you do yoga asanas, you experience this in the physical body. That's why there's yoga asanas. You feel pain in a posture, you don't just force your way into it, or you could, and you feel the repercussions. But you begin to ask questions. Why do I have this pain in the posture? And then you notice if you can create a more aligned relationship with the resistance. Is it healthy pain? Is it unhealthy pain? If I move my shoulder like this, if I ask the teacher, if I, you explore it with that sort of inquisitive nature. That's what the postures are for. And then eventually what happens in the postures? They become effortless if you ask enough questions. Or some people go, yeah, I don't need to do these. And they do something else. It doesn't matter. Who makes the rules about that? You do. You have to be really honest. That's the hard part. Laziness is a different thing. But if you're like, this doesn't align with me, no problem. Do something else. In these first two stages, you may still see points of refuge in the external. You know what I mean by that? You may still see points of refuge outside of you. This, asking the teacher, bowing to the guru, external things. out here in the world. Even your family is external. Number 3 is active meditation in the moment. This is what the Buddha talked about when he said, your goal is to practice without practicing. Hard to just do that, unless you really know who you are. And you bring this focus into your daily meditation. The ability to listen to your purpose, to your true voice in daily action. How do you learn to do that? First, you learn to concentrate. Where do you learn to concentrate? In the first 2 stages. Listen to the teacher. Bow to the whatever, study the text. Do the work, as they say. But that's not the point of all of this. The point is to listen to your own voice. So you learn to concentrate, and then you'll be able to listen. Right? And then you'll be, like Alan Watts says, you'll be able to come off the trip. The trip is not the point. And until you realize it's just a trip, the teacher's going to make you stand on one leg for hours and hours and hours until you go, this has nothing to do with who I am. I am Shiva. I'm God. I'm infinite. I'm not just somebody standing on their leg looking for something. What you're looking for is you. You stand on your leg until you go, oh yeah, I'm it. And then you don't need it anymore. Wait a second, I thought the standing in the pose was the point. It's not. It's the finger pointing at you. This is where the danger comes in, where you start to feel the, oh, aren't I wonderful? That's where the fall usually comes. This is not a selfish, aren't I great? It's inclusive. You see everybody else is the same. Infinite. And you see their problems and their bullshit and all that. But the trickiness of the ego comes in here, right? And true mastery is experienced in this stage when you shift the focus from what can I get from the practice to how can I serve from the practice. However that is. It's the same thing in recovery. You don't just get sober so that your life is better. The only way you'll stay sober is if you help somebody else on the path. If you don't help somebody else, eventually you'll go back to it. No one is an island, you know the expression? It's true. And then when you're able to connect the vision of who you are with the connection of everyone around you, you're ready for the 4th stage. You understand? Connection is from the navel, vision is from here, intuition. If you can balance the two, the heart is able to operate freely. Otherwise, one's blocking the other. You're disconnected, selfish in this region, or you're disconnected here, you can't see your vision. You know why the navel is the connection point? Put your finger right here, you'll feel it. Remember your belly button? Your life depended on another human to get here. And then the 4th one is you see that the refuge, the inner refuge you're seeking is you. Even amongst total chaos, Donald Trump, war, destruction, suffering, child molestation, all of this fucking craziness that happens on the planet, you see who you are in relationship to all of it, and you remain steady. That's hard. There's a lot of suffering and bullshit, and you start to buy into it. The sage looks at all of this, the duality of it all, the pain and the pleasure, and they see that the refuge here is me. And everybody has the opportunity to find it. It's not out there. It's not in the woods. It's not in the meditation. It's not in this statue. It's not in the mantra. It's not in what time you get up to pray. It's you. That's it. You see how you have to go through the process. And does that mean it stays like that forever? No. You fall out of it all the time. You make mistakes, you say shit you don't mean, you behave badly, you fall into all of the nonsense. And then now you get to go through the cycle. You keep going. Practice, fail, forgive, our teacher said. Practice, fail, forgive. Practice, fail, forgive. That's the way of the sage. This is a good quote from Ram Dass. You're here to be more deeply involved with life while not being attached to it. That's in a nutshell what I'm saying. Did you get it? You're here to be more deeply involved in life without being attached to it. That's the way of the sage. Your refuge is you. It's not outside of you. When you understand this, you'll be a yogi. A yogi is not affected by duality, is not affected by praise and blame, can sit and listen without thinking, oh, well, what my opinion? You just listen, and then you speak. That's hard. But if you can get good at this, you'll be able to listen to your inner calling. And when you make mistakes, they won't leave a scar. You'll be able to forgive right away. And that's why we do these practices. So step 1, discover who you are. Step 2, focus, listen, do the practices that align with you. Test it out, challenge authority, even me. I don't know if that's true. Test it, prove me wrong. That's how science works. You don't just believe things because Einstein said it. Like in religion, people believe things because so-and-so said it. Science doesn't work like that. You try and prove Einstein wrong. And if you can't, you go, wow, Einstein was amazing. And you keep trying. That's evolution. And then with repetition, number 2 becomes natural. You start to see these practices really work. And then the 4th is, as we mentioned, Alan Watts, you actually can come off it. You know what it means, come off it? The need to be right. Well, my God is better than your God. I'm a this and you're a that. It's the intellect. It's like mental masturbation. Just give your intellect a break for a second and listen. What am I supposed to learn from this? You know? Not be right. It's tough. And when you recognize that you are the refuge, you know, the podcast I have, Revealing the Diamond, that's what it means. You are the infinite. God, Guru, and Self, same shit. Somebody texted me after a conference I was speaking at. They had a note. It said, God, Guru, and Self, same shit, Tyaga Prem. And they said, is this the direct quote? I said, yes, you can quote me on that. But you have to go through the process. Otherwise, you don't know who you're listening to in there. Is it your mom? Is it your grandmother? Is it 6 generations back? Is it society? Is it the government? There's all this stuff going on in there. So you have to sift through it. That's what we're doing here. Sifting through the bullshit and the belief systems. Till you get glimpses of, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. That's it. That's a yoga practice. Should we try it? All right, sit tall, close your eyes.